look, whether people are interested in COVID and future pandemics or climate change and the energy and environmental consequences of that, or the rise of China and the need to spend more on the military, regardless of what you think the big challenges facing Australia in the next 50 years are, it's hard to imagine that a bigger public sector isn't going to play a major role in both shaping our policy response, but also in even providing the services. So unfortunately, for 30 years, we've been told in Australia that the smaller the public sector, the more efficient our economy will be. That's not based on economic theory, and it's certainly not based on economic evidence from around the world, because in the last 30 years, while we've been cutting taxes and cutting programs and deregulating things, the Nordic countries, which collect much more tax and have much bigger public sectors, they're streets ahead of us when it comes to productivity growth. I don't argue in the book that the public sector should do everything or we should be Norway. I just think that our public debate is completely broken, because it's actually heresy to ask the question, is the public sector big enough to meet the challenges we face and the expectations we have? Of course they should. And this is, while I'm talking about spending a lot at the moment, the premise of the essay isn't that public spending is the answer to everything. And I certainly don't think that public spending is the only tool available. So I think, obviously regulation plays a really important role, and procurement plays an enormously important role. So if the government really wanted to show leadership, whether it was on net zero commitments or whether it was on energy efficiency or even equitable employment arrangements, it could have all sorts of mandates and targets for its own procurement. So it's not unprecedented to have these things. But again, I think we need to have a bigger, broader democratic debate about when that's useful and when that's not. And my thesis is that all those useful conversations are drowned out by saying just cut spending, just cut taxes, when we need to be more creative and imaginative than that. I guess a really big part of it is we've kind of replaced objective analysis with what did the government say and what did they do and is that good or isn't it? We've replaced that with this permanent sort of whataboutism. So when a minister admits that they spend 120 emails figuring out which marginal seat to spend some money in, we don't say, hang on, that's money with opportunity cost. That's money that could be spent on all sorts of things. And you've just admitted you just shoveled it onto the people you like and the electorates you like. This is scandalous. In Australia, we just say, didn't Ros Kelly do that years ago with a whiteboard? Now, if I catch my kid stealing and my kid says, your other kid stole once, who would go, fair point? Yeah, you're right. You should escape sanction altogether. Someone else was disappointing at some point in history. So democracy requires our high expectation. Democracy requires our vigilance. And we have to sort of ask who wins from our low expectations. And I think the people with the best access, who can influence parliamentarians to shovel money onto their pet projects, they are empowered by us having low expectations. Because when they succeed, the politician doesn't even pay a price when they're caught. Once upon a time, ministers resigned because they actually either felt or were pressured to feel by their colleagues that respect for the party and respect for the parliament was more important than their career ambitions. Scott Morrison has kind of reversed the onus of truth and basically said, look, ministers shouldn't resign unless they've been convicted of a crime in a court beyond, where the bar is beyond reasonable doubt. And indeed, we've been told that to even raise an allegation against someone when you don't have overwhelming evidence beyond reasonable doubt, it's actually rude to bring up the accusation.
Yeah.
So we've really completely reversed from politicians should hold themselves to a higher level of accountability. We've flipped that into saying if Richard can't prove beyond reasonable doubt that Chris did something, Richard shouldn't, it's impolite to even bring it up.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Constitution that used to protect us. It was our political culture.